I always believed that family meant support, but my reality was different. Maplewood was supposed to be a home, a comforting little corner of the world, but for me, it had turned into a stage where my stepmother performed for an audience that consisted only of herself. As I walked through the tiny, cluttered halls of our old house, I could hear the television blaring in the living room, a constant background noise. It was as if the screen held her captivated, ensuring she wouldn't notice me returning from yet another painful day at work where I barely scraped by. I had bills piling up, each one more suffocating than the last, while my stepmother pranced around like a queen, living a life that felt light years away from my reality. Every month was a struggle. I worked tirelessly at the local diner, my hands calloused from handling plates and my feet aching from endless hours of standing. My mind was always racing with calculations, adding up debts and expenses, and wondering when I would finally catch a break. Just get through this month, I often told myself as I pulled the faded apron over my head, but with every passing month, things seemed to spiral further out of control. As I made my way to the kitchen that evening, the scent of chicken and spices filled the air, overpowering and almost sickening. My stomach growled, but the thought of what my stepmother might serve made me hesitant. "Dinner is almost ready," she called out cheerfully, her voice echoing through the hallway. It struck a nerve deep within me, the misplaced joy of it all. How could she be so carefree while I drowned? I walked in, forcing a smile, but it felt like a mask I wore just to get through the moment. "Smells great," I said, glancing around the kitchen. It was immaculate, unlike my life. Not a single dish was out of place as she hummed to herself, making me wonder if she even realized the mess I was trying to clean up in my life. "Thank you, I thought we could have a nice dinner to celebrate," she trailed off, her eyes misting over as though she was lost in some delightful thought. "A celebration for what?" I asked cautiously. I remembered when my father had passed away, a time filled with grief and confusion that had thrown everything into disarray. Our family was torn apart in those days, and yet she seemed to glide through it unfazed. She beamed at me, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, just because life is too short not to celebrate the little things, right?" "Right," I said slowly, not wanting to engage in her frivolous mindset. I turned away, directing my focus to the kitchen sink, filled with dirty dishes that begged for attention. Somehow, even the simple act of washing dishes felt like a chore I did alone while she enjoyed her indulgent life. Just then my phone buzzed, pulling me away from the whirlwind of my thoughts. It vibrated vigorously against the countertop, and I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the best of me and I picked it up. The message that popped up on the screen was from my stepmother's phone. I frowned. It was a notification from her bank app. My heart raced. I never looked through her things. I respected her privacy, but that night was different. The fleeting thought of what she might be hiding clawed at my insides like an animal desperate to escape. It was a moment of weakness or perhaps instinct that drew me closer to the screen. I found myself compelled to open the message. "Balance $50,000. My breath caught in my throat as the weight of the words pressed down on me. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of the counter, shock coursing through my veins. My mind reeled with disbelief and mounting anger. That money belonged to us, yet she was using it to fuel her lavish lifestyle while I barely made ends meet. A rush of emotions swirled within me, fury, betrayal, and a profound sadness that felt nearly unbearable. The news of my father's life insurance had been delivered with care, a memory that still felt fresh. I was abandoned emotionally, and now that money was supposed to provide for both of us. We were supposed to look after each other after losing him, not tear each other apart. In that moment, the betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. I could hear the clattering of pans in the kitchen, a haunting reminder of normalcy amidst my storm of emotions. "How could you?" I whispered under my breath, my heart pounding. "How could you do this to me?" The easy smile on her face glimmered in my mind like a thief in the dark, and with every second my chest tightened. I turned the phone back towards me, that numbing balance mocking me, my father's memory lingering like a ghost. The world shrank until it felt like just me and that number. I forced myself to breathe, feeling the tears threaten to spill. Then it hit me, the thought that it was not just the money, it was everything. It was the life I could not afford, the life that seemed stolen from me. I thought of how often I had come home, exhausted and worn out, only to see my stepmother flaunting new clothes and jewelry as if money grew on trees. "I'm struggling," I hissed under my breath, fire rising in my voice. "And you're living it up." She must have sensed my turmoil because she came into the kitchen, catching the flicker of despair in my eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked, feigning concern. I forced my voice to stay steady, like a dam holding back a flood of emotions. I can't keep living like this, can't you see that?" "Come now," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Everyone has to work hard, but you need not worry about that. I have been saving for a rainy day." "A rainy day?" I exploded. "What about my rainy day? Where did you even get that money?" She smiled, that sugary, bright-eyed gaze that felt like a knife twisting inside of me. "It is nothing to concern yourself with," she said too sweetly, her voice dripping with condescension. "Now let's just eat and enjoy this lovely dinner, shall we?" Her tone made my blood boil. "You are stealing from me," I almost shouted. "You think you can just hide that money while I'm drowning in bills?" She stepped back, taken aback. "Stealing? Oh, that's quite an accusation." "Is it?" I shot back. "You seem to forget that you are my family. We are family. We're supposed to be in this together." Her smile faltered, and I could see the flicker of anger brewing behind her carefully crafted facade. You are an adult, Amelia. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to tame the wild thrashing of emotions inside me. I do not need money taught to me like a lesson. I need support, a family. This is not how a family behaves. But you're not a child anymore, she countered, the pitch of her voice rising. You moved in here out of convenience. You could have been independent. You chose to rely on me. I scoffed at her words. You've built a castle while I am barely making it week to week. You have bought yourself a life as though it did not harm anyone. What I found reminds me of the promise our family held. I mean, how could you? You are just taking everything our father left for us and squandering it away. Her face became tight, and for a fleeting second I thought I saw the mask slip, but it returned swiftly, that default smile she wore like armor. You don't understand, she replied, her voice lowering but dripping with condescension. Just because you're struggling does not mean I should. Why should I feel guilty for having a better life? Better life? I questioned. You don't even care about anyone else but yourself, do you? Not about what this money could do for us, but how it feeds your selfish desires. To you, I am just an afterthought, a nuisance that you allow to stay here while you indulge. Enough, she barked, her anger sparking flames I had never seen before. You think you can waltz in here and dictate how I use what is mine to control? You are not a child anymore. Learn some responsibility. I did not waltz in. I was forced into this corner, I shouted back. The heat of the confrontation burned in my chest as these words slipped out, fueled by the crumbling foundation of years of accumulated pressure. Then do something about it. Her voice was sharp enough to cut. The sharpness of her words echoed in the air between us, the distance growing unbearably vast. My heart raced as silence filled the kitchen, both of us panting in the aftermath of our exchange. I could feel the mounting pressure of her dismissiveness tightening around my throat. I never wanted it to come to this. The tense air between us became a palpable thing, a living entity that pulled at the fibers of my being. I can't believe you would stoop this low, I managed to say finally, the quiver in my voice a betrayal of my inner turmoil. Believe it, she answered coldly, her eyes hard. Life is not fair, get used to it. My heart sank, a sudden chill creeping over me as I stared at her, eyes wide, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief and confusion. How could she remain so unbothered, my own flesh and blood untouched by the chaos that was our lives? I wanted to scream, but found my throat tight with unshed tears. What happens next then? I demanded, my voice trembling. What happens when I expose your lies, your deceit? Expose, she echoed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. You think anyone would believe you? I have created a life here, Amelia. I am well liked here. You are nothing more than a burden. Her words were venomous, each syllable piercing through me as I felt the weight of her indifference settle in. I straightened my back, determined not to let her see my doubt, but deep down I was shaken, a storm of emotions swirling inside me, feeling more lost than ever. You may be well liked now, but no one is perfect. I will not let you take what is rightfully mine. As I stormed out of the kitchen, I let the door slam behind me, the sound ringing out like echoes of my turbulent heart. I walked towards my room, the anger in my chest boiling over into something more profound than rage. I felt raw, exposed, but once I reached my room, a new sense of determination swept over me. The taste of betrayal lingered like an open wound, and I knew one thing was certain: this was not the end. I would find a way to reclaim what belonged to me. I would uncover her lies and navigate the storm ahead, fueled by the fiery need for justice. I would not give up. I would not drown. My family had taught me about support long ago, and now I would show them just how powerful that bond could be, even when all seemed lost. In Maplewood, a war had just begun, and I would fight to the last breath to make sure that money, that symbol of betrayal, would find its rightful place beside me, where it belonged. With suspicion gnawing at my mind like a hungry beast, I began paying closer attention to my stepmother's habits. My usually mundane weekends morphed into meticulous surveillance, turning me into a reluctant detective in my own home. I would sit by the window with a steaming cup of coffee, watching her disappear into the town with gleaming shopping bags peeking from the footwell of her luxury car. Each time she returned, my heart sank a little lower as I beheld her triumphant smile. The sunlight would catch the glint of new jewelry around her wrist, and I would wonder how many hours I had spent working at my 2 jobs just to scrape by each month. There was a pent-up energy in me that felt indignant and, quite frankly, betrayed. I had built my financial foundation brick by brick, and here she was tearing down my hard work with every seductive swipe of her credit card. I bit my lip, fighting the wave of frustration that threatened to overcome me. Couldn't she see how unfair it was? She had stepped into our lives with a smile and a seemingly endless supply of money while I was drowning in student loans and credit card debt. The exclusive dinners I noticed her attending, the ones she told us about with a nonchalance that made my skin crawl, were not for family bonding. These seemed to be lavish gatherings filled with laughter and gossip among the elite while I was home alone or on my way to yet another shift at the diner. The invitations to her fancy events felt like salt in an open wound, reminding me of all the things I missed while she reveled in luxury. How could she not see how hollow her indulgences felt to me? It was as if she were feasting while I was left scavenging for crumbs, and then there were the endless streams of packages arriving at our doorstep. each one felt like a dagger plunged deeper into my already heavy heart. I would watch the delivery truck pull up, my heart racing in a mixture of excitement and dread. What new trinket or gadget would she have ordered this time? Each box that appeared felt like a testimony of her disregard for the financial realities I faced. With every Amazon Prime box she carelessly tossed into the living room, I was reminded of my own struggles, my own sacrifices that seemed to mean nothing in comparison to her lavish lifestyle. Clips of her snickering at unboxing videos on her phone felt almost cruel. She would giggle and spin around a new outfit, the fabric flowing and brushing against her skin like a love letter from someone who cherished every penny she spent. I felt like a ghost, hovering around the edges of my own life, invisible and irrelevant. My own pale sweaters and faded jeans sat neglected in the closet while I watched her flaunt extravagant clothing that shimmered under the living room lights like gold. It all culminated one evening over dinner, a casual family affair. The kind where we were expected to pretend that everything was fine, to join in on the laughter while I wallowed in discontent. She served us all a homemade meal, but there was a distinct sheen of smugness as she offered the first plate to herself. As she filled her own bowl to overflowing, I had to remind myself to breathe. The question I wanted to ask hung on my tongue like a poison I was afraid to spit out. "Do you ever wonder about the life insurance policy?" I finally managed to say, my voice shaky, barely above a whisper yet loud enough to slice through the chatter around the table. The fork clattered against the plate as her laughter erupted, shaking the air between us. "Oh honey, why on earth would you bring that up?" she deflected with forced glee, completely disregarding the dangerous truth of my question. My jab was met with condescension, fire that scorched, rather than the warmth of familial trust. It was in that moment that I felt small, like a child caught in a lie. My siblings snickered, the sound ringing in my ears like a mocking hymn. "Amelia," her voice rolled back at me, "you worry too much. That stuff is for old people. Why would anyone want to talk about something so dreary?" "Oh, come on, it's just a sky-high policy, isn't it? Wouldn't we want to know more about it? Is it even for us?" I pressed, desperate for clarity. "The money is to help you all, can't you see that?" She shot back, her eyes narrowing momentarily before her smile returned, poised with practiced charm. A small laugh escaped her lips, heavy with dismissal, and my stomach twisted painfully. I felt pitiful, like I had laid bare the deepest fear of losing everything I had left, only for it to be laughed away like a child's fear of the dark. I paused, absorbing the tension that had instantly enveloped the dining room. My siblings exchanged glances, with expressions that told me they stood firmly with her, as they always did. "Amelia's just being dramatic again," one of them remarked, leaving me utterly alone in my thoughts. It pierced my heart, a cruel reminder that this battle was mine alone. In that moment, the walls I thought were my safety crept in toward me like a predator ready to strike. After dinner, I lingered in the kitchen, my fingers gripping the cool edge of the countertop as I attempted to compose my racing heart. The plates clinked as my siblings washed them, their lively chatter only amplifying my isolation. I longed for a confidant, a fellow warrior in this unmarked war against the feeling of betrayal that suffocated me. I hesitantly approached my siblings, hoping against hope that they might share my concerns. "Do you guys notice how much she spends? The dinners, the trips?" "It just doesn't seem right," I implored, my voice shaky but resolute. "We should talk to her about it. She acts like it's all normal." The brothers and sisters I once cherished as my allies turned against me, shaking their heads dismissively. "You're overreacting, Amelia. She's our stepmom, not a villain," one of my siblings scoffed. "You just need to lighten up. Everyone deserves to enjoy life a little," another chimed in, brushing aside my worries like crumbs on the tablecloth. The sting of betrayal cut deeper each time they agreed with her, drowning out the last flicker of camaraderie I thought we had. As I moved away, feelings of despair clawed at my insides, leaving me feeling utterly defeated. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy against my chest, making it hard to breathe. It was then that I realized the walls weren't just closing in, they were brick walls, solid and unforgiving, trapping me in my thoughts while I felt utterly alone in this fight. Would I have to fight this battle alone? My heart weighed heavily in my chest, and for the first time the thought of vengeance began to creep into my mind like a shadow, dark and intoxicating. If no one else saw the injustice around me, then I would have to find a way to expose it myself, to uncover the truths that lay veiled beneath her shimmering facade. The glow of her false life raged like a fire against my reality, and I felt sparks igniting within myself for what must come next. She would not win this battle unchallenged. The gauntlet had been thrown down, and I was ready to pick it up. I had always considered our home a sanctuary, but that evening, as I pushed the front door open, it felt more like a stage set for an extravagant play that I wasn't invited to watch. The sound of laughter spilled out into the foyer like a wave, crashing over me and pulling me into a whirlwind of noise and chaos. I stood frozen for a moment, taking in the scene. The rich scent of truffle oil wafted through the air, mixing with the clinking of champagne glasses and the rhythmic hum of upbeat music. My stepmother was in her element, at the center of it all, her laughter ringing out like a prized symphony. A lavish chandelier sparkled above, casting a warm glow over the crowd that shimmered in their designer outfits like colorful moths fluttering around a flame. I shifted my weight, feeling the chilling bitterness settle deep within me. It was already hard enough to watch her indulge in the life I felt I was meant to inherit, but this was a mockery of everything I had worked for, everything my late father had promised I would one day have. It felt like a slap in the face, and it hurt. Deep down, I wondered if he had left me anything at all had I been forgotten, just like so many other things that mattered. I stepped further inside, trying to remain inconspicuous, my heart thumping like a drum against my ribcage. I could see her there, draped in a stunning emerald gown that hugged her curves perfectly, the fabric flowing around her like a cascading waterfall. She was firing her charm at the guests, fluttering her eyelashes and tossing her hair back, and I couldn't help but feel like a ghost in my own home, invisible and unsatisfied. "Where do you want to focus next, dear?" I heard her say to a man in a crisp white suit, his eagerness evident in the way he leaned in close. Did they even know what it had cost to have this kind of life? "Yours is the best party in Maplewood, of course," he replied, his voice like smooth velvet, the words dripping with flattery. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, a wave of emotions crashing over me. "Yours," the word echoed in my mind, digging deeper with each repetition. I glanced down at my own attire, nothing special, just a simple blue dress I had worn countless times, frayed at the edges and far too modest for such grandeur. I took a few steps back, wanting nothing more than to vanish into the wallpaper. But then I spotted the spread of food, gorgeous platters dressed with delicacies that would make anyone's mouth water. Foie gras, caviar, shimmering fruits, and creme brulee were arranged artfully on tables draped in deep purple cloth. The hired caterer moved gracefully between guests, serving each one with a flourish, while my stepmother bantered effortlessly, embodying the perfect hostess and wealthy widow in her element. "Now this is what life should be like, don't you agree?" Her voice rang out, finding my ears through the chatter. "It's all about keeping up the appearances, darlings. A woman must never forget her worth." "Worth," I muttered under my breath, practically choked on the word. Worth to her meant wealth, a life of luxury purchased with deceit, and the thought sent my insides into turmoil. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. This was unfair. I wanted to scream, to make them notice me, to show them that I was not merely a bystander. I was part of this home too, and I deserved a voice. I turned my head sharply as a loud cheer erupted. "To wealth," they toasted, champagne flutes raised, glinting under the lights. I could hear the sound of glass clinking in celebration, and for a moment I felt like a character in a tragic play, waiting for my cue. But if I let this moment slip, I feared there would be no turning back. "Excuse me," I whispered to no one in particular and stepped forward into the open space, irritation fueling my resolve. "Excuse me," I raised my voice, surprising even myself, and eyes turned towards me, curious, confused, and a bit alarmed. "Ah, look who finally decided to join us," my stepmother exclaimed, her voice an enticing mix of mockery and surprise. "Amelia, darling, enjoying the view from the corner. Is this really your idea of celebrating?" Challenged, my pulse racing, heart pounding against my chest like a war drum. "Throwing a party while my father's memory languishes in shadows. Did it even mean anything to you?" Gasps filled the room, and a hush fell over the previously lively crowd. My stepmother's smile faded, replaced by a mask of irritation. "This is hardly the time for a family discussion," she snapped. "Everyone is having a good time, and I suggest you join them." "Good time," I spat out. "You think this is about your good time? You flaunt money you took without a second thought, pretending it belongs to you. Did you even think about what this celebration means to me?" "Amelia, don't make a scene," she hissed, her previous charm now replaced with an icy edge. "You are embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself?" My voice grew louder, eyes blazing with resentment. "You've made a mockery of everything I hold dear. You think I can just stand here and pretend that all of this," I gestured extravagantly at the luxurious setup, "means nothing? You took away my home, my heritage, everything." The guests exchanged nervous glances. Some appeared amused, as if watching a scripted performance. Among them, a few wore pitying expressions. One woman whispered to her companion, "Poor girl." "Enough," my stepmother shouted, her fierce voice cracking through the tension like thunder. "You have no idea the sacrifices I've made. I'm the one who keeps this family together. You think inheriting a mere house means a thing? Your father entrusted this to me to manage. You should be grateful." "Grateful," I laughed, though it came out more like a bark, the sound harsh and bitter in the air. "Grateful for this charade, for being nothing but a ghost in my own home? No, I'm not grateful, I'm furious. You think these people will come back tomorrow for your life? They won't. They don't care about you. They care about what you can give them, what you can flaunt." My words hung in the air, and her face turned crimson, the veins in her temples pulsing with anger. "You have no idea what you're talking about. I've earned my place, fought for it. This isn't just a house." "Then why isn't it yours?" My lips curled into a smirk, the words tasting like victory even amid the storm brewing around us. "Why do you have to rent another's name? Why do you flaunt wealth that isn't yours? It's shallow. You are but a parasite." I took a step forward, emotions swirling wildly, storm clouds gathering above me, ready to unleash thunder. "And you think you can keep doing this? I will not continue to live under the same roof as you while you live on his shadow." The room was rife with tension, my breath rapid with adrenaline as I stood defiant, eyes locked onto her like a hawk sizing up its prey. The guests shuffled uncomfortably, hardly knowing whether to applaud my bravery or pity my plight. "Leave," she commanded, words sharp enough to cut through the air. "You do not belong here with me." No, I shouted, voice echoing, reverberating through the room with frantic energy. I refuse to be silenced in my own home. You brought me here, but I will not be your shameful little secret. You flaunt your wealth on the bones of my family, and it makes me sick. I will not tolerate this. Do you realize who you are speaking to? She barked, fury spilling over as guests murmured in disbelief. I know exactly who I'm speaking to, I shot back, feeling empowered, a burst of adrenaline surging through my veins. You are a pretender, a fraud, and I will make sure everyone knows it. The atmosphere shifted heavier with my words, a storm brewing beneath the surface, and I could feel my heart pounding in rhythm with the growing tension. The guests shifted uneasily as if they were standing on the cusp of a tranquil lake, uncertain of what lay beneath. What will you do? She taunted, a flicker of confidence sparking in her eyes despite her earlier outrage. Write a letter, call the police. What do you think they will do? I am in control here, dear. No, you underestimate me, I replied, my voice low yet clear, resolving into a promise. I will not be forgotten. You are living on borrowed time, and I will reveal the truth. Everyone will know about your deceit, and I won't hide anymore. I turned sharply, making my way toward the exit, thunderous heart echoing, the chorus of guests' disbelief following me. Each step away from that transformed space felt liberating, yet something more sinister was brewing alongside my resolve. A darkness whispered within me, forming plans that danced just beyond my conscious mind. Amelia, I heard her voice, strained now, but it was too late. I was beyond her reach. You're digging your own grave. It be so, I whispered to myself as I stepped out into the cold, moonlit night, determination swirling with an undercurrent of vengeance in my heart. But first I am going to expose yours. The door swung shut behind me, leaving the raucous laughter and false merriment behind, a reminder that I would no longer play the part they had cast me in. I would carve my own path, and this time there would be no turning back. The atmosphere inside the grand hall was electric, a meld of opulence and festivity. Chandelier crystals shimmered above, their refracted light dancing across the faces of well-dressed guests who laughed and mingled like characters in a lavish novel. The scent of fresh roses and expensive perfume hung heavy, entwined with the soft notes of classical music that floated in from the corner of the room. Tremors of anxiety threaded through me as I took a deep breath, trying to drown out the noise that threatened to drown my resolve. Tonight was not just any night, it was a meticulously orchestrated moment, a stage set for disclosure. I glanced around, taking in the sight of her, my stepmother, basking in the glow of adoration. She wore a deep emerald gown that clung to her figure perfectly, sparkling with every movement, an image of sophistication and charm, the kind of woman people flocked to. I could hear snippets of conversation, praises for her impeccable taste and hospitality, compliments wafting through the air like confetti, adding to my breath of hesitance. You've outdone yourself this time, someone exclaimed, their voice mingling with laughter. Each cheerful remark was a dagger twisting deeper into my resolve, setting my heart on fire with both anger and urgency. After months of gathering evidence, my hard work was about to pay off. I had uncovered the truth hidden beneath her glamorous facade. Bank statements, receipts, and the cruel irony of her deceit all laid out methodically, each piece cultivated with care until it formed a damning narrative. I thought of all those nights where I sat at the dining table, the lavish meals cooked with ingredients far beyond our means, the sheer hypocrisy wrapped in those gourmet dinners. In another world, she could have been adored for her culinary masterpieces, seasoned to perfection, but instead they now felt like powdered deception hiding a bitter undertone underneath. Amelia, a soft voice broke through my reverie. I turned to find my brother, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. You okay? He asked, his brow furrowed. I forced a smile, clutching my drink tighter, my knuckles white against the glass. I'm fine, just taking it in, I replied, though doubt gnawed at the edges of my words. He nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. It was a reflection of my own internal battle, a pendulum swinging between dread and anticipation. As some of the guests began to trickle towards the lavish buffet spread, my heart raced like a snared animal desperate to breach its confines. My sister joined us, her hair spilling over her shoulders like a waterfall of sunlight, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling just beneath the surface. The moment felt electric, charged with tension. Every laugh, every clink of glasses filled me with a raw, pounding need to stand up and say what was bubbling inside me. My stepmother, radiant and enchanting, reveled at the head of the room, basking in the glow of admiration, completely oblivious to the truth lurking behind her smiles. I straightened my posture, my resolve crystallizing into something solid and unyielding. This was my moment. I took a deep breath, the vibrant notes of the violin swelling around me, pulling me closer to that proverbial edge. With an unexpected confidence, I stood up. The murmur of conversation shifted like a wave uncoiling through the crowd, eyes darting toward me, faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Their expectations crackled in the air, melding with the tension that wrapped around my shoulders like a heavy cloak. Excuse me, I called out, my voice breaking through the festive chatter like a beacon cutting through fog. Can I have everyone's attention, please? I felt a wave of uncertainty rip through me at that moment, but I pressed on. I have something important to share. My stepmother turned, surprise mixing with disdain as she took a step back, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto mine. She was quick to recover, laughter spilling from her lips, attempting to diffuse this unexpected ripple in the evening's mood. "Oh, sweet Amelia, darling, this is hardly the time for a speech. Let's not spoil the fun, hum." Her smile was like a weapon, polished and sharp, aimed directly at me, but I was finished playing nice. "I think it's time the truth comes out," I called, my voice steadying as I felt the weight of everyone's gaze shifting fully onto me. "While all of you have been enjoying this lavish party put together by my stepmother, I've been uncovering a truth that is far graver than our delight over hors d'oeuvres or drinks." A murmur echoed in the crowd, curiosity peaking as I could see their quickened pulse under the layers of silk and satin. "What is she talking about?" a guest murmured, confusion peppering their voice, and I felt a pulse of adrenaline flare brighter and hotter within me. This was it. "I have documents that reveal her deception," I continued, my courage swelling with each syllable. "For months she's hidden the truth behind layers of lies that have affected not only me but our entire family. This isn't just a personal affair, it's theft, it's betrayal." As I spoke, I could see the flickers of disbelief forming around the audience, shock rippling as the magnetic pull of my words drew them in. My stepmother's expression morphed from shock to annoyance, her brows knitting together, lips pressed tight. "Amelia, this isn't the time," she began, her voice a dangerous whisper, laced with a calm that contrasted with the storm brewing in my heart. "I have the bank statements," I cut her off decisively. "I have proof of everything." With shaking hands, I retrieved the folder I had stashed beneath my seat, and the rustling paper clicked through the sudden silence like a trigger. It felt surreal as I held up the documents, the stark white paper seeming to glow under the glaring pendant lights. "These are filed receipts, expenses from her life that she's covered with apparent winnings from her petty poker games. But this isn't how we lived, this isn't what our family has earned." Gasps of disbelief filled the room, punctuated by the metallic sound of forks dropping onto plates. "What are you saying? This can't be true." A voice shot up from the crowd, lost among the noise and chaos rising from a place I had hoped to leave untouched. "You don't know what you're talking about, Amelia," my stepmother shouted, the desperation in her tone impossible to disguise. "Oh, but I do," I replied, meeting her fire with a steady gaze, refusing to back down. "You lied to us, to everyone. You have been playing us all, using your charm to disguise your theft. Your bank accounts don't lie. The total amount spent on all of these parties reaches into the thousands, money that should have gone toward our family, invested in our lives. Where did it go?" I could see her scheming eyes dart to the guests, looking for the sympathy she desperately wanted to extract. My siblings looked on, faces drained of color, confusion morphing into horror as understanding dawned upon them. I watched as my sister's fingers trembled at her side, clutching tightly at her gown. "Amelia, please, you don't have to do this." She pleaded softly, her voice breaking, as though trying desperately to grasp at the fragments of a family that was beginning to fracture at the seams. But I held fast, fighting through the heartache that clawed at my insides. "She's been running a con," I stated firmly, relishing the weight of each word. "And I can prove it." I waved the bank statements like a child waving a flag of victory. My stepmother's sneer fell flat, the shards of her perfected facade collapsing as quickly as the silence enveloped the room. I pressed onward, emboldened by the newfound momentum. Money stolen from our household while we were left to believe we were well off. Money that could have helped us, money spent on party games and sparkling wine instead of college funds, vacations, anything that might truly benefit us. "Amelia," she hissed now, her voice laden with urgency, desperation creeping closer. "You're making a fool out of yourself." "You have no proof." "Oh, I do," I reiterated, clutching the pages tightly, filled with everything I had worked so hard to compile. "All of this ends tonight." In the ensuing silence, I saw several guests step closer, drawn by a mix of curiosity and disbelief, their laughter now cut short, replaced by hushed whispers exchanging glances of shock and speculative horror. "Is she serious? She can't be. Who does she think she is?" floated through the crowd, fragments of disbelief tangled with intrigue. Names were spoken low, glances of judgment mixed with their confusion as I faced my stepmother. There was no reversing the blow I had dealt. The stage was set, she was unmasked, and I could see the flickering recognition of defeat crossing her exquisite features. "No one will believe you." The words came sharper now, laced with venom as her eyes glinted with anger. "You're nothing, just a bitter girl seeking attention from the affair of your betters." But I saw past her venom, felt the weight of truth wrapped around me, unraveling her every lie. "They see clearly now. Tell them about the accounts, how you squandered what should have built our family. Tell them," my voice reverberated, "or I will." The atmosphere grew tense, the silence thick like smoke, clinging to our skin as every breath felt sacred, every heartbeat profound. The disorientation etched into the faces of my family was a sight I would remember forever. Confusion turned into contemplation, shadows of doubt lingering on my stepmother and my brother and sister exchanging looks that whispered through the space, unraveling the doubts and fears they had held for so long. Finally, a guest from the back stepped forward, his brow furrowed with understanding. "Is that why the family money was always so tight?" he asked, a ripple of recognition dawning. "We've all noticed something was off, that's enough." My stepmother exclaimed, panic flooding her voice as she sensed the tide turning, the wall beginning to crumble around her. This is all ridiculous. Amelia, don't you dare. But the rhythm of the evening had shifted. Guests were now a chorus of shocked murmurs, knitting together a fabric of understanding, the weight of her deceit cracking wide open like the seams of a tightly sewn dress. She's not wrong, another voice called out, stronger now, rallying behind my plea. We need to know. I felt a sudden rush of energy fill me, a mix of hope and vindication swelling as I realized my words had struck chords deeper than I had anticipated. The room filled with disbelief like a thunder rolling through, and the ripples of truth began to cascade through every corner of the party. This ends tonight, I declared once more. Your charade, your deception, it ends here. That was my final stand, the moment that would seal my stepmother's fate. I stood alive in that space, caught up in the growing storm of emotions, a new vibrancy brewing within the silence, a relentless truth that had finally shaken the very foundations of her empire built on lies. In their faces I saw the unmoored fragments of trust they had once held dear, unraveling as the truth swirled around the room. I was ready now, ready to follow this path I had forged. There was no turning back. With every gaze locked upon me, I felt liberated in knowing that the truth, no matter how unfathomable, had finally come to light. After the chaos of the reveal, the air in our home felt heavy like a thick fog. The tension in the room pulsed as if a storm was brewing just beneath the surface. I stood at the kitchen island, gripping the counter so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless drumbeat that echoed my thoughts, urging me to stand firm. I could still feel the shock radiating from my family members' faces as my stepmother tried to downplay the enormous weight of her deception, her voice shaking as she insisted that the hidden funds were not what they seemed. It was just a small savings account, she said, glancing around, her eyes wild in the dim light of the kitchen. I thought it was best for everyone not to know, but I had known better. I had spent too long in this family, watching her twist truths to let her dismiss this. I cleared my throat, feeling my voice rise, full of defiance. A small savings account? I demanded, my tone slicing through her attempts at placation. The others looked at me as if waiting for the storm to break. You lied to us, to all of us. $50,000 is not just a small piece of change. My heart raced as I stood my ground, my stomach flipping as I glanced at my father's chair which sat empty, an aching reminder of the man who had once been the anchor in our chaotic lives. The memories swept over me like a wave crashing against the shore, filled with laughter and warmth that felt so distant now. But those days had been overshadowed by my stepmother's grasping hands, greed stretching its claws into every corner of our lives, trapping me and my siblings in her web of manipulation. Taking a deep breath, I turned to the others, my siblings. They were as much a victim of the deception as I was, although the disarray among us was palpable. Their faces held a mixture of confusion and outrage, emotions flipping like pages in a book tossed by the wind. We need to talk about this together, I raised my voice slightly, trying to muster strength amidst the chaos. It's time to finally confront what has been hidden. I don't want to be a part of this, one of my siblings muttered, shifting uncomfortably, their voice barely above a whisper. It's not our business, but I wasn't going to back down. The fight within me blazed like the fire of a long-buried volcano. Yes, it is our business. The money is ours too. I felt my legs shake, but I didn't move. I pushed against the feelings of self-doubt, pounding against my chest like a war drum. My stepmother crossed her arms, an immovable statue blocking our exchanges, her eyes narrowed into slits. You're blowing this out of proportion. That money was meant for emergencies, and yet it stayed hidden for years, I shot back, my tone sharper than I intended. It's time to lay it all out on the table. For once we'll regain a sense of fairness in this family. Whispers traveled like ripples through the room, each voice muffled by the sacred shroud of our own tension. My siblings began to shift in their chairs, an undercurrent of agreement sparking among us. I could see glimmers of realization dancing across their faces. Finally, slowly, they were awakening to confrontation. The harvest was ripe for our mutual hunger for justice. The smell of coffee, bitter and strong, wafted through the air, colliding with the tension and wrapping around our words. I could hear the faint clink of cups as I dared to gaze toward my stepmother once more, the fine china glinting under the harsh lighting, a stark contrast to the cloud of betrayal hanging over us. She looked a little paler now, her bravado faltering like a candle wick threatened by a gust of wind. I won't tolerate this nonsense. Enough, she declared too loudly, her voice almost breaking as she pointed a finger at me, but I refused to flinch. I won't back down, and neither should you, I responded, my words gaining a confidence of their own. This is not just about the money, it's about what it represents. It's about trust, about family values, about respect. As if you know anything about respect, she sneered, her eyes suddenly brittle as she tried to regain her lost ground. Do you think you are any better than me? I could feel anger rising like bile in my throat at her gall, her constant endurance of victimhood wrapping her in its hold. I don't need to be better than you, I just need to reclaim what is mine, what is rightfully ours. The room fell silent as my siblings began to lean in, not just physically but emotionally, as if grasping for the truth that had been buried beneath layers of deception, wanting to hear what lay beneath the tension, a familiar truth hidden by fear. Then, in an unexpected turn, one of my siblings slowly spoke up, their voice wavering but determined. You know what? I agree. We are family. If there is money hidden away, then it should be divided among all of us equally. I could feel the tides washing in my direction, pulling away my stepmother's defensiveness like autumn leaves swirling beneath an autumn wind. Finally, I thought, feeling a sense of camaraderie arise as a renewed strength enveloped us, not just as individuals, but as a united front. Thank you, I whispered to my sibling, my heart swelling with mingled emotions. Let's make it clear, our father would never have allowed this divide to happen. This isn't how family should work. As I spoke, a sense of hope ignited in the corners of my heart. I could almost hear my father's voice guiding me, reminding me to stand strong and proud as I forged this new path. It was as if I were reclaiming pieces of him, his strength, his values, bringing them back into the family fold. And if you want to keep it hidden, that's on you, my sister jumped in boldly, her previous defenses dismantling. But we deserve transparency. We deserve to know the truth. That was it, the dam broke. The others joined, murmurs of agreement blossoming as we stood together on this fragile ground. The unity felt good, like a much-needed balm for aching wounds. My stepmother watched with growing fury, her face a picture of chaos, fists balled up tight against the chaos that had erupted around her. You can't possibly think you can take what Enough, I interrupted, focusing my gaze on her, feeling the weight of decisive righteousness build within me. You have pushed us around for too long. The time for silence is over. She shrank back for a moment, caught in a sudden silence. Then her voice emerged again, venom lacing her words. You will regret this. A chill raced through me, but I stood taller. Regret? No, I will not regret taking what is mine, what has been kept away from us. I held her gaze, willing her to see that this was not about anger, but about justice. Finally, the air shifted, the silence shimmering into an uneasy negotiation of sorts, and I took a deep breath. So let us talk about the division of the money, I stated cautiously. We need to make this official. The tension hung thick in the air, but at that moment the thrill of empowerment flooded my veins, weaving itself through my emotions as I finally began to articulate what I felt was right. We need something tangible, a plan moving forward so we can all heal from this. One by one, my siblings began to nod, their expressions more resolute than before. The soft shuffle of their agreement broke through the weight of resentment that had clouded our family for years. Light seemed to seep back into the room, the shadows of betrayal started to wear thin. My stepmother felt caught in a whirlwind, the light shifting away from her. Finally, she blurted out, yes, let's talk about it, but what makes you think I'll give anything to you? The simple truth is there's no other way to resolve this, I offered calmly. No more lies and no more deceit. At that moment, as we began to discuss the inevitable settlement, the dawning realization filling our hearts with hope, a sense of righteous victory washed over me, exhilarating like a sweet summer breeze breaking against my skin. I could see the flickers of reconciliation beginning to form among my siblings as we took tentative steps toward healing, like baby birds learning to spread their wings. I held my ground as we collectively formed a plan, knowing that this was just the beginning of reclaiming not only what was rightfully ours, but also the family unity we had lost. A swirling mixture of emotions flooded my core, electrifying the air around me. I was no longer the neglected child hiding in the shadows. I was reclaiming my rightful place, stepping forward into the light. And as I turned my gaze back to my stepmother, her facade crumbling beneath my steadfast resolve, I silently vowed I would never let darkness dictate the path of my life again. I breathed in deeply, soaking in the sweet taste of justice, my heart singing a triumphant melody. The journey back from despair wasn't just starting, it was taking flight, and for the first time I could finally see the horizon stretched before me, unencumbered and bright.